I'm Paul. I run a photography and media business, and I've learned a lot of lessons over the years about freelance working and how to cope with some of the things that go horribly, horribly wrong. I've split this into 3 sections. You may want to scribble some notes because I'm going to go some speed on this, and I only use pictures, really. So I'm going to first talk about resilience. What do I mean by resilience? I don't mean the personal mental health resilience that lots of you will be familiar with and lots of other talks will address. I'm talking about some of the basics of being the freelancer and being on your own. What is resilience? Well, resilience in a corporate context, in a business context, is often what can I draw on in terms of networks or other people to support me, because it's just me. And that feeling of standing at the end of the tunnel, gazing at whatever's coming towards you, can be pretty daunting. So the simple tip I'm going to give you, and each of these sections will have a simple tip. It's about networks. Now, you may hear the word network and think cocktail parties, very artificial business events, speed dating for businesses. I mean network really, really broadly. And you will have around you in your professional networks and your friend networks a lot of the resources that can help you already. And if you haven't, you can find them. Now, you may find an absolute mayhem and mix up of people around you that have got skills that can support you. But I'm going to talk about one thing here, which is knowing that when you work as a freelancer and you bring somebody else in to help you, you have to be really clear what terms you're doing that on. There's lots of different models. You can do it as a reciprocal, friendly arrangement. I give you a piece of work, you come and help me with a piece of work. You can do it by charging a premium on their service. Essentially, you're then subcontracting some of your work and you're an agency. You might not think you are, but you're an agency. So understanding how those networks are working with you, for you, instead of you, in your place, is really important. So all I'm going to say is don't try and trip over those things. If somebody is working for you and it is a favor and they're supporting you within your network, that's great. But if you're charging some money on it to somebody else, then you need to be very clear with them about those terms. So think about networks broadly, flexibly, and do not be on your own. I'm going to spend a lot of time in this talk on what I call professionalism. I came from a professional services background before I set up on my own. And some of those very basic disciplines are useful to me every single day in being a freelancer. Now, I'm going to talk about something that's so obvious and so basic that you may all be doing it, or you may have never even thought of it. And that is running what we call a pipeline. So a sales pipeline, a sales funnel. You'll sometimes hear these words. And all it is, in short, is a collection of every damn single thing you ever might hear of that you could work on. Every possible opportunity. You could even extend that to every possible introduction. So that hasn't worked at all. Apologies. So what I do is an incredibly simple structure where I list, in the full version of this, just the name, the date, the organization, the assignment details, the source, and what I'm doing about it. This is the most simple spreadsheet in the world. I've been running this for 12 years. It's got about 5,000 entries in it now. And every time somebody comes towards me and just says, you know what, we should probably get some pictures done next year, it goes in here. It goes down. And I will have a date where I'm going to follow it up. I'm going to track it. You would be amazed. You wouldn't be amazed how many freelancers I talk to, and they say, yeah, you know, I had this phone call a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know, I sent him the spreadsheet. I sent him some terms. And did you follow up? Oh, I'm just waiting to hear. So do not do that. Be professional. A professional pipeline indicates everything that's happening. Doesn't have to be in great detail. What's the next thing you're going to do about it? And things like the source is really good for me, because over time I can spot whether I'm getting more work in through repeats, through referrals, or through Google search. And it also helps me with referrals to tell me who referred, so I can then, if things go well, thank them. Even if things didn't go well, I'm probably going to thank them anyway, because it's a lovely thing to happen. So run yourself, for whatever you're doing as a freelancer, some form of pipeline. This changes every day. I put maybe 2 in and take 2 out, 3 in, 3 out every single day. When they're completed, when the job's either done or lost, I file it in a separate section and I can look at the graveyard of all the things that went wrong. That's also great in 5 years when somebody comes back and you think, that name rings a bell. You can go and look back in the boneyard, as I call it, and find out what job went wrong, why you lost it, maybe who you lost it to. Did they ghost you when you put proposals in? So it's really good for stuff like that. Don't overload it with personal information. Be aware that GDPR applies to all information that you hold within an organization, or personally identifying information. But it's just got the basics there of this organization wanted to do this project on this date, and I suggested this much money. So it's really simple. It doesn't take time as an overhead, and it will make you more professional. A question that a lot of professional services organizations ask themselves is, what is my product? Now, you might think that my product is photography. I do a lot of photography. But is that really my product? Or am I there to give assurance to people that what I'm delivering is the best service they're going to get, and this is not something they need to worry about for the rest of the event or the conference or their new website? And in that case, I'm not so much selling photography as I am selling assurance or reassurance. So have a good think about what your product is. You may think you're an incredible developer, but are you actually a problem solver? Are you actually a calming influence on a team that's in strife? So what the core product that you have, whatever's inside your little fragile box, may not be what you think it is. And so it is worth some examination. I get asked a lot of the time, to come and do some headshots. Is that a product, though? Probably not. Is going in there, reassuring people, understanding their needs, understanding their branding, and bringing a solution together out of all of that, that's probably my product. So have a really good think. Whatever it is you do, don't just stay on the surface with what a recruiter may say or what's on the top line of your CV for that piece of experience. Think a bit deeper as to what your product is. Okay. And when Kevin first talked to me about this, we were looking at some of the things like what happens if somebody steals your work? In my case, I'm a photographer. It happens quite a lot. But anybody can have their intellectual property stolen. Anybody can have, let's say, work taken without attribution or without payment. What do you do? And I'm putting this under realism, because sometimes you need to just give yourself a massive squirt in the face with a hose. Because what you think has happened, and I'll give you, let's go with the example of somebody takes one of my photos, isn't necessarily the same as the way the law and the structures that help me put the situation right actually work. So when someone takes something of mine and I see it on a website, my first reaction is emotional. It's anger. It's pain. It's, oh, what do I do? Where did I go wrong? None of this is going to help me rectify the situation. So what I actually do, and what I have to do, is take a very calm, distant look at the situation. This has happened, so this, and then step through that process. So let's go with the example. If I find one of my pictures somewhere, what I do not do is belt off an email saying, how could you do this to me? This is terrible. Do you know how it feels to be a freelancer and have your work stolen? These are emotional, rhetorical questions. They do not help. I say, you've used this picture. Do you have a license for this picture? If so, could you send me the details? And that's it. That's the first one. They will come back and say, no. I will not then say, I'm really angry and I want you to give me a load of money to make me feel better. I will say, the law says that you can't do that. The law says that if you do that, then I'm entitled to ask you for a payment in lieu of compensation for anything I might lose by you having taken the picture. So let's assume it's got a value. That if you haven't paid me that value, then other clients may not pay me that value. If they see the picture somewhere and they had it exclusive, then it could cause other problems. If it involves client commissioned work, that could involve other problems. So I use the information I have to put down a number. And I say, this is bad. You have done a bad thing. But for this number, we will not need to proceed to a legal remedy to do that. And almost always that results in success. Now, there's a lot more detail involved than that. But the point being is you can't get upset about stuff. You need a dose of realism. You need to know your laws. You need to know who not to pursue. If I see something on a website that's in, let's just say, somewhere east of Moscow, I'm probably not going to bother. I'm not going to bother chasing it, because there's no realistic prospect of me recovering anything. So be realistic, take some of the emotion out of it, look at the landscape, and work through step by step. And as ever, draw on your network for people that may be able to help you and people that have been there before. So that's it. I'm just going to recap on what I went through there. So first I was saying that if you're on your own, that's a bad place to be a lot of the time. And it's good to have networks, both informal, help, advice, mentorship, or more formal, working together, collaborating, working for you. Build those networks. To build them, I mean, I used, again, another draw from my professional services background. I used a matrix structure where I said, look, here are all the different types of work that I do. And so that might be videography, photography, motion graphics, script writing, project management. And here's all the different sectors in which I might do that. So I do a lot in the venture capital industry. I do a lot in politics. I do a lot in media. And I say on that matrix, who do I know that kind of presses buttons on that grid? So who's really good at project managing stuff with a government client? And so I do know people who do that. And that means that when I'm faced with a challenge, which I'm going to need some backup, I kind of triangulate, not just in terms of their sector, their industry sector, but also their service line, so what they're good at. And this is exactly the thinking that professional services organizations use to try and understand who can do what well where. So don't be ashamed to use a technique like that for your own network. Plan it, map it. And so if you think, well, I need some video, but actually I need video that's really going to work in a very high-end professional services banking environment, you probably don't want somebody who's going to be a great videographer in a piece you're making about a football game. It may be the same person, but it may not. You may want to look for some specialism in there. So draw up a grid for yourself. Think, what are the different service lines and skills that I want from my network? And what are the different areas? It could be industry areas, as I said. It could be types of expertise. Could be something else. And think about who you could slot in there. Even if there's someone very, very far away that you don't know yet, get to know them. Build yourself a full network. And then the last thing was to say that, you know, when things go astray in terms of your IP, the emotional response isn't the one that's gonna save you. It's going to be a structured process, and it's going to be something that you probably want to look at what others have done on it and take it step by step. I'm going to stop chatting on 14 minutes there, and I'd welcome a chat maybe about some of the nightmares that you've experienced, or whether anything that I've brought up today has made you think, or indeed you want to argue with, or it's just resonated.